Hello, welcome to the Have a Lab. My name is Babatunde Arolo, and today we're going to be talking about divisions involving a whole number and a fraction. Okay, so first off, we're gonna identify what a whole number and fractions are respectively. So a whole number is an everyday number we see. Okay, so the numbers that we count like one, two, three, four, five, those are whole numbers, right? Because they don't have fractions or decimal points attached. So numbers like let's say seven, seven is a whole number because it doesn't have a decimal attached. But if we say we have a number called seven, like 7.2, this is not a whole number, right? Because it has a fraction attached. Or if you see another number like this 7/8, this is not a whole number because when we divide this, right, it gives us something that has a decimal attached. So when we divide 7 by 8, it eventually give us 0.875. So this automatically just tells us no, it's not it's not um a whole number, right? So we already got this. Like we know it's not a whole number. Okay, so whenever we see a particular number like this, that's a whole number, right? But what if we have something in a fraction like this, like let's say 8/2? These are able to divide each other, right? Because 2 is common at the bottom and also common at the top. So when we divide 2 at the top, that gives us 4, and when we divide 2 at the bottom, that gives us 1, right? So this is 1. So this is the same thing as 4. So eventually this turns out to be a whole number, right? So they can sometimes be fractions that when you evaluate them carefully, it ends up being a whole number, right? So this is an example of it. These are examples of fraction that you can't evaluate without getting a decimal point or a kind of fraction attached to it. So these kind of fractions are not whole numbers, right? And also, if we're given this kind of number, because there's a decimal point attached to it, automatically that is not a whole number because there's like something 7.2, 7 point something. As long as it's not 7.0, right? 7.0 is the same thing as 7, right? Anything point zero is the same thing as the same number. But as long as it's not point zero, it's a whole number. It's not a whole number, right? So in this case, the whole number, the whole number in this question is 8, right? Because is attached to itself without any form of decimal point or whatever, right? So this here is the whole number. Okay, so a fraction basically means a number that has a numerator and a denominator. And what I mean by that is something like these examples, these ones I've put in place. So let's say we have 7/9, right? This is a fraction because it has like a numerator up here and denominator, and they are not divisible by each other. They don't have anything common like that. They can't really break down into something, right? So they don't have anything common, and this division sign is here. So that basically means it's a fraction. So whenever I see something like this, that is a fraction. So based on that, the only thing that's a fraction here is 7/6, right? So based on that knowledge, let's come to this example. So this example says divide and then write your answer in its simplest form. Okay, so when you see simplest form, that basically means you have to divide whatever question that you're being given, and you're gonna have to divide it till the top part can't divide the bottom part, till there's no number common between the top part here and the bottom part here, right? So whenever you're dividing, they always come, like in this case, there was the 8 had a number that could divide that could divide 2 also, right? And that number was 2. 2 could divide 8 here, and 2 could also divide 2 here. So when we divided 8 by 2, it gave us 4, and when we divided 2 by 2, it also gave us 1. So that's the same thing here, right? So okay, so let's look at this question. It says 8 divided by 7/6. Okay, so as you notice, 8 doesn't have um doesn't have anything divided by 1 or whatever, right? So you can also leave it like that, or you can also say 8 divided by 1, because automatically anything divided by 1 is the same number, right? So it doesn't really matter if you have divided by 1, it's still the same thing. So if you have 9, right, 9 divided by 1 equals 9. Right? If you have 15, 15 divided by 1 equals 15. So as long as we put divided by 1 we're good. It doesn't really matter about anything. Okay, so we got 8 divided by 1 here. So just I just want to put that out so we'll have a better approach when we're simplifying this stuff. So we have 8 divided by 1 divided by 7 over 6. Put this out real quick. Okay, so we have 8 divided by 1 divided by 7. Okay. And the next thing I want to do in this question is I want to ask myself, what sign am I using to combine these fraction and whole number, right? And in this case, we're using a division sign, and it's mostly common for people to make mistakes if they just want to go straight ahead and divide, right? So what I want to do is I always want to change this division sign to a multiplication first before I can go ahead with whatever I'm doing, right? So once I realize this is a division, I want to change this division to a multiplication, and the only way to do that is to find the reciprocal of the number behind the division sign. So in this case, the number behind the division sign was 7 and 6, right? So we have to find the reciprocal. And to do that, all we have to say is we're going to put the number at the bottom, put it at the top. And whatever's at the top, we're going to have to put it at the bottom. That's basically what reciprocal means. We're taking whatever's at the top and putting it at the bottom, and whatever's at the bottom, putting it at the top, right? And so when we do that, we can then change the division sign to multiplication. Okay, so this is 8 divided by 1 times, remember, take this up, this is 6 divided by 7. So now we can go ahead and work with whatever we're given, right? Okay, so this is 8 over 1 times 6 over 7, right? So what I want to do in this is I want to ask myself, what number can divide the bottom part that can also divide the top part? Okay, so first off, let's start with 1. What number do you think can divide 1 that can also divide 8? 1 is a universal divisor. Anything can divide 1, right? So that's why we put 8 divided by 1 here, that anything can divide 1. Because whenever we divide 1, we still get the same number. So one trick I want to tell you is that whenever I see 1 in all these kind of fraction problems, there's no need to work with 1 because 1 doesn't reduce, right? So we're doing this so that we can get the simplest form it can possibly be. Because remember, in the beginning of the video, I said you have to continue dividing the top and the bottom side until we can no longer divide, right? But 1 continuously divides. 1 is a universal divisor, so it doesn't break down at all. It just stays the same. So we're good there. So since 1 is universal, so it doesn't really matter. So we can kick that out. So let's work with 7 now. So we're gonna ask yourself, is 7 what number can divide 7 that can also divide 8? Like, is there any common factor between 7 and 8? I don't think so, right? Because 7 is literally next to 8, and there's no number. 7 is also odd, and 8 is even. So odd numbers and even numbers don't divide each other without fraction happening, and we don't want that. We just want to just break it down until we get something that's divisible, that's a whole number, right? So 7 can't divide 8 without there being a fraction. So we kick that out. So ask 7 and 6 also. What number do you think can divide 7 that can also divide 6? It's not possible, right? 7 can divide 6 without a fraction happening, without a decimal happening. And so based on that, and also 7 is an odd number and 6 is an even number, right? So based on that, we can conclude that there's no number at the bottom that can divide any number at the top, right? So based on that, we're good. We already have that, rest assured. Okay, so all we have to do now is multiply the top divided by the bottom. So this is 8 times 6 divided by 1 times 7. Okay, this is equals 48 divided by 7. Because when we multiply the top, that gives us a 48. And when we multiply the bottom, that gives us a 7, right? So this will be equals 48 divided by 7. Okay, so this is the smallest form it can be. So let's check that out. Let's put the answer in. Let's, yeah. Okay, so let's try another practice. Let's see. Let's test our knowledge. Okay, so this is the same thing that we worked on in the previous example. So this is kind of telling us to also divide and write our answer in its simplest form. Right, so we're asked to divide 8 by 5 over 6. Okay, so the first thing is we're gonna we know we're working with division in this case, right? And so we're gonna have to find the reciprocal. That's the first step. We'll find the reciprocal of the number behind the division sign, right? So the number behind the division sign is 5 over 6. So to find the reciprocal, we take whatever's at the bottom and put it at the top, and take whatever's at the top and put it at the bottom. Okay, so this is 8 times, so now we can put it times instead of division. 8 times 6 divided by 5. Okay, and remember I told you in the beginning of the video, since this place doesn't have a fraction, we can just say 8 divided by 1, because 8 divided by 1 is the same thing as 8, right? So you can say 8 divided by 1. Okay, so I just do that just to make it look more simpler. Right? You can work with it without the divided by 1, but yeah. Okay, so and also remember in the previous example, right? I said like when you have one in these kind of questions, you don't really want to use one because it's going to be useless, right? So one can divide everything, right? So it should be good. Okay, so we skip to 5, right? I was going to ask you, so what number can divide 5 that can also divide 8? There are no common numbers that can divide 5 and 8, right? Because 5 is 5. The numbers that can divide 5 normally ends with a 5 and a 0. So let's say like 50, right? Since it ends with a 0, is divisible by 5. Or let's say 65. Since it ends with a 5, is divisible by 5. But 8 doesn't end with a 5. Neither does 6 do. Neither does 6, right? So based on that, we can say there's no number up here that can divide 5 or anything common to 5, right? So this we're rest assured that okay, there's nothing that can divide the top and the bottom. You can just multiply them. So we multiply the top, which is 8 times 6, divided by 1 times 5, which is the bottom. So 8 times 6 equals what? 48, right? Because we add 8 6 times 48. Divided by 1 times 5, which equals 5. Okay, so let's check that out. 48 divided by 5. Yeah. Okay, so thank you very much for watching the video, and I really hope it made you, it clarified you enough on the knowledge you need to know on this topic. Yeah, so have a nice day.